Hello and welcome. I am Kat, and this is my channel Vibrational You. For those of you who are new, I am a long-time astral traveler, interdimensional traveler, and spirit consultant. And we are doing a video about what happens when you die. Been meaning to do this video for a while and wanting to, but feeling a little bit awkward or put off by it, and just got the kick in the butt I needed to go ahead and make the video. One of the things that I am privileged to have gotten to do as part of training in an astral setting was I had the honor and the privilege of training in being a personality in assistance to transition. So in other words, being a spirit in assistance to humans who are going through their death experience. And I thought I would come on here and share what my experience with that was, what that seems like from the perspective of somebody who was there to assist somebody transitioning, and share a little bit about some of what happens, some of the things that you might experience, and see if we can't just put everybody at ease just a little bit about the experience of transitioning back to non-physical. You've probably seen other videos and other commentary of people talking about their near-death experiences, people who were close to death, had their transition experience, and then returned to talk about it. And a lot of them sound very similar, but they all each have their own individual flavor as well. And that's because every personality, ego personality here that transitions, as it transitions back, is going to have a very personalized experience of what that means. It will feel very much like shifting into sort of like what a dream state feels like. There's a bit of a sense of detachment. Some people will see themselves hovering above the scenario that's taking place in order to understand what's transpired. Aside from that, other different kinds of visuals can shape and form themselves according to the situation. A lot of times it's become a much easier sort of a practice now that many of those videos are out, and a lot of people have an idea of the sort of floating feeling or walking through a field, going down a tunnel. This sort of imagery has become popularized in the minds of people, and it makes the process of transition a lot simpler. But if you were per se like a highly religious person who had other ideas about what happens when you die, all of that type of imagery can form up around you and show itself to you as well. In a non-physical state, just like in a dream state, your energy, your psychic energies will form the reality around you that you're experiencing based on your own thought processes, your own biases, your own belief structures, and whatever it is that you need to see in order to understand what's happened. So the process can be very individualized depending on the needs of the person in transition. For many, many individuals, this is going to be a very simple and very easy process. Nowadays, it's far more common for individuals to know and understand what's happening, to know that they were ill or that they were older, or to understand medically what's taking place. And so there's not as much of a tendency towards sudden transition as there used to be, certainly. Although sudden transition still takes place, and in those cases, there is additional assistance available in order to help the individual understand what's transpired. In my case, all of the training scenarios that I was put through for this had to do with individuals who had a sudden transition experience and did not have time as an ego personality to process what had taken place. For example, one gentleman I was called to assist. When I arrived, he was still sitting in his vehicle, staring out his windshield at the concrete traffic barrier. Not in 3D reality. This is what he had created in the dream state, the transition, non-physical reality. And he was still very confused about what had just transpired. he knew he had just been in his car, and as far as he was concerned, that was still where he was. It took him a moment to acclimatize to non-physical reality well enough to even realize that I was sitting next to him. And once he noticed that I was there, he seemed shocked and confused that anybody was in the passenger seat. So sometimes in the case of, say, in this case, a traffic accident that happened suddenly, it's possible for a personality to really have no idea what happened. One minute they were driving down the road, the next minute they find themselves in a strange dream state staring at a concrete barrier. Now, in this particular instance with the gentleman in the vehicle, the next thing I did was tell him that everything is okay, but I think we need to get out of the vehicle because we're going to have to move beyond that barrier there. A little bit of an esoteric way of saying it, but sometimes the imagery that we're provided with in the scenario, a lot of times there is a movement that will take place. So it can be a lot of different things. It can be walking through a field. In this case, we were going to move beyond the barrier. Some people will experience things like being shot out past the stars, or moving down a tunnel of light. A lot of times in non-physical, we will use the visual metaphor of a physical movement in order to help physically focused ego personalities be able to understand that there is a transition taking place. It's far easier for physically focused personalities to understand movement as a visual metaphor for transition. So a lot of times some sort of movement activity will be involved. Now, once I got him beyond the barrier, another thing that happens quite often for people is that a loved one or a family member or someone who is already transitioned will come to provide comfort and support and help them complete transition. So once we had gotten beyond the barrier, I received in physical reality, we tend to call it a download, as if it's being downloaded from on high or something of that nature. But it's really just an information block. It's a psychic information block that you get tuned into. And I received one of these psychic blocks of information that gave me all of the personal data for what I knew immediately was grandma. I got the feeling of grandma, the memories of grandma. I could see myself watching him play as a child in his room, little toys that he was playing with. And once, the minute that I got all of that information, he looked at me and said, "Oh, it's you." And I said, "Yes, I used to watch over you when you were a child. Don't you remember?" And I held out my hand and produced the little toy, little whack-a-drums. You whack them back and forth and they make a clack on either side, to hand to him. It was a toy he used to play with when he was a child. And this provided a sense of safety and comfort and trust with the individual. And I don't want to make it sound like when you transition, if you come across your loved ones in non-physical spaces, like it's not them, it's just somebody masquerading as them. It's not really how that's meant. It is possible in this person's case that maybe in a previous experience I was grandma or closely related to grandma. I might be close on the, how do I say this, the sort of spiritual family tree, close enough as a division, another portion of self to grandma, that it was easy for me to be the personality in attendance for this. It is entirely possible that grandma, after she transitioned, actually moved into another life cycle or another portion of her soul's experience. And so the closest, how do I say this, energies that are closest, personalities that are closest on the family tree, so to speak, the closer the energy pathway, the easier it is to channel that information and act in the stead of, if that makes sense. In non-physical, we're all source energy. And so to some degree or another, we're all branches of the same consciousness. We're all extensions of the same consciousness. And the closer you are on the branch to other souls, the easier the energy pathways are to access and get to that information. Hopefully that made sense. From that point, I was able to walk with him, escort him. I told him that we're going to have to take a little walk. And we did start walking down a hallway, or at least to my view, it looked like a hallway with names written all down the walls. And when we got to the end of the hallway, it was for him to go ahead into, again, what looked to me like a big indoor garden, like an indoor botanical garden or something like that. And he went on into the garden and I turned around and went back. So it is very common, this energy of going down a hallway or walking towards the light. There's a lot of garden imagery, a lot of fields and natural imagery that can take place. It makes transition easier for people. Some of the other things that we can do to help assist in transition, like that's one common way that things can go down. We can also, we can adopt any sort of energy or persona that is necessary for people to feel safe and comfortable and loved and feel like it's okay to release the physical world. I had another instance where an individual had passed in a more sudden manner. When I got called to that situation, he was boating or something, rafting maybe. He was still in a river, a swift moving river, and he was fussing around in the water, freaked out and panicked. He was looking for the people who had been in the boat with him. The impression I got is he was looking for his children. And so this gentleman had been river rafting when the boat turned, and unfortunately he had hit his head on a rock going in, but had not had time to realize what had taken place. And because of the adrenaline and the fear and the worry for the people who had been in the boat with him, he had immediately recreated the surroundings the minute he transitioned into non-physical, and was still very much searching for the children that had been with him. In his case, he was very frantic and he had some different ideas about what it was he needed to see. And so I created a large rock in the middle of the river and appeared on the rock to him as an angel, or at least that's what he saw and felt when he looked at me. It was the energy that I adopted. It's an energy of pure love, of comfort, of safety, of light. It's a very high vibrational energy to put out. And he came over to me reaching up, wanting me to pull him out of the river to help him find the children. And so I wrapped my arms and my wings, everything around him, and just flooded him with love and safety and peace. It's another one of the things we can do in non-physical is we can have an influence on the emotional, the feeling, the vibrational state of an individual. And so we're able to exude that feeling of just absolute love, peace, safety, warmth. And I just made the waters all around him very still and calm. It was suddenly a very still river. And I sunk down into the river with him rather than pulling him up out of it, so that he could understand what had taken place. Again, that was more the imagery and things that particular individual had needed to experience to understand what had happened with him. One of the other things that I've had the privilege to train in and to do, one of the other things that we can do to assist in transition, is to actually be present and experiencing the transition with a physically focused personality. And I have had the experience of being almost in the body with the individual, feeling all of the feelings and having awareness of the condition. And in that instance, the intention is to help people remain emotionally and vibrationally calm and stable if they are consciously experiencing death as it occurs. And then, so there was a moment, a point where that personality, when the body stopped functioning, when the heart functioned and the lungs weren't breathing, there was a brief moment of panic on the part of the ego personality that was like, it's not working, you know? And at that point, it was like having a voice in his head that just said, I know, okay, just let go. Let go. And he was able to let go easily. So one of the other things that we can do is be with you through the process for peace and calm, and for assisting with just the moment of actually letting go. It is all a very, very loving and very supported process, regardless of the circumstances. For that young man, I don't want to get into any kind of details, but that was a sudden transition that was not due to an accident. That was an act of violence. So even in those types of moments, we can be with an individual through the experience to help with calm and peace and letting go. Now, after the initial transition back to non-physical, individuals do experience a little bit of an acclimation period. So there may be some sort of strange feelings or thoughts. Detachment is common, or the weird thought of like, it's not that you forget the physical experience that you just had, it's that you begin to feel a little detached from it. Like, I've seen individuals be like, that was me, that was my life. And I'd be like, yes, that was just you. You know, there starts to be this weird detachment that happens where it's like, that was me, that was weird. You know, as the personality begins to reacclimate to broader perspective, as the knowledge and understanding of everything that you actually are, the full breadth of soul's experience, you still have and integrate all of the experiences that you just had as the physically focused personality that you are. It's just that you begin to become so much more, so much of a broader perspective from that. And that transition back to the full knowledge of everything that you are takes a little bit of a acclimation period, and sometimes makes people feel it's a little bit strange or confusing for a little while until all of that really gets reintegrated back into the experience. Really the point of sharing this is, you know, death and all of the feelings that we have as physically focused humans surrounding death is some of the most difficult feelings that we go through in physical reality. Both the fear of death and the feeling of grief when someone that was dear to us has gone ahead and transitioned ahead of us. And anything that I feel like we can do to help alleviate those fears or help to alleviate that grief, I think is well worth saying and putting out. I can absolutely promise you that this is not all that there is. There is absolutely, I'm not sure if you want to call it an afterlife. From my experience and my perspective, it's really just returning to the fullness of who you actually are and what you actually are, and all of the connections that you have. Everything will come back to you, and you will actually become much fuller and much broader than the perspective that you hold today. So there really isn't anything to be afraid of. If you found this information or this video interesting, you like these types of topics, drop a comment and let me know. If you're interested in knowing more about what non-physical is like, what it's like operating there, and different things that I've experienced or can do just from my experiences, drop a comment and let me know. And thanks for listening. See you later. Bye.